Alrighty. Thought I'd just do a bit of a talk about a couple of plans I've got around here. Some of which may not happen for a long time, or maybe not even at all. I hate to sort of nail things down and say, well, I'm going to do this, and then sort of realise that I don't have the money all the time. Or, you know, we're in the middle of summer, and, well, not the middle of summer, but the start of summer, and it's raining like shit. I did plan to do this roof, that's completely correct. And that was going to be a thing this summer, but it's been raining for days, you know. This is not normal for the season. And quite frankly, I don't really want to put roof sheets on if it's going to be raining intermittently later on, you know, in the season. And honestly, I just didn't have the money because of change of jobs and all this sort of stuff. And whatnot. For those of you who sometimes ask, I'm not getting a wind turbine. This old bitch here, this is a real old school one. I'm not really supposed to show this because my father owns this. And old crank handle piece of shit. Bloody C's solid. So I'm trying to get him to get this out of the way, as I have been for the last 6 months or so. Some of these I probably should get rid of. I kept these for throwing old bolts and wire and stuff in for scrap metal purposes, but I sort of don't have that anymore. But you know, I might still keep a few, but I've got to move a bit of blooming scrap stuff around and throw a few things out and make a few things usable. There's another one of those pots actually in there too. Here it is. It's funny what you find when all the leaves come off of these box thorns and whatnot, but that's just a few things by the by. There's on my copper stash. And make a point of hoarding up a lot of copper things because I know that copper has a reasonable value. This bitch has still got to go. Oh yeah, I done the barbed wire too. Done that yesterday. My father put it up and I wired up the whole damn lot, the whole place in a couple of hours. Like tied it on the actual posts. Now, show you a little problem that keeps coming up over and over again. This fills up with water down here. This was a hell of a hole. I put this in on this gravel. Had the truck turn up from a local quarry and pitch a whole heap in and spread it all out. And you know, nothing's changed and the water still pulls up. What I need to do is make basically it's a bit like a French drain here, where you basically cut a trench in and then you put in like a U-shaped piece and in concrete, pour concrete like that. And then where the hole is, you go and fill it with larger rocks. And it sort of gives you a reasonably level thing for very little price, only probably $15 worth of concrete, if that, because I've still got cement bags here in the laundry storage area, and that hopefully should stop water continuing to run down, because it sort of goes in a slight slant from there into this area, causing all this to pull up. I probably should dig a little bit of a trench at the side here, and I may even put one on this side as well in case it's sort of coming back the other way, but there's not much room that's actually coming back the other way before the driveway starts to tilt down the opposite way again. But you know, this bullshit's got to stop, and so I've got to do something to fix that. Now, these are all the cheap plans. Well, the roof isn't going to be cheap, it's going to be over $1,000. But I've also had other plans that may be a very long way off happening, but I still want to talk about it regardless. It may not be that far off at the end of the day anyway. I want to replace the water tank. You see a little one there next to the solar panels. That is literally 20 years old. So when I redo all the roof and then I'm going to get another water tank, brand new plastic one, probably only small, probably not even the size of an IBC, and put a pump in that and run it straight into the laundry so I can use, you know, that rainwater for laundry use to sort of basically really slow up the amount of use of the water that I bring in, you know, for laundry purposes. Anyway, I've had a few other ideas that are going to cost quite a bit. I may end up buying a jackhammer. The toilet system, I don't usually talk about it, but there's going to be a dramatic upgrade and probably a lot of bloody earth moving in the process. And I'm not joking, it is literally only about a metre down and you hit solid rock. And we may need a jackhammer for those purposes, and it'll come in good for my father doing a few fence posts or whatever, you know, which I could get on the end of the jackhammer and make it happen so much quicker. I can get jackhammers for brand new for like $650, and there's quite a chance. These are electric ones. You just take the generator down with it, plug the it into the generator, and off you go. And I think it might be one of those things where we probably should have bought one years ago. And we have hired a jackhammer once before here for something, but this is a fence here that cuts my property in half. You won't be able to see it, but there's a bit of a dip in the land down there, and that's where the big dam is. And I want to basically have a water pump run water basically right up to here, so that I can use it for watering all my small trees which are in through there. There's the IBCs, I used to water them. And I want to basically run it up the boundary fence, which is, there's a bit of water here and that's a boundary fence there. Run the line up along there and have some sort of a, most likely one of the old bathtubs have, you know, received the incoming water, and then fill up to a bunch of IBCs with a small sump pump, dirty water sump pump to fill the IBCs. It may just go straight to the IBCs, it all depends. I thought this was sort of on a correct slope, but it's not. I always thought this was reasonably flat, but it actually dips down towards the dam. But I've been looking into pipe prices, and pipe prices alone, I've got between $1.15 a metre for 1 1/4 inch pipe, or $1.50 for a metre for 1.5 inch pipe. And long story short, you're probably gonna go with 1.5 inch pipe, and it may cost me, you know, about $1,200 worth or something like that. I don't really know. I haven't actually officially measured it out. But because I've got the property split in two, I want to be able to just close that gate there and hold the sheep down the bottom here. But in doing that, I've got to have a source of water for them to drink. And, you know, if I pump water out of the dam / giant pond down there, of which I've actually got 3 of them down there, I can, you know, provide water for them without trying to use the government supply that's chlorinated that I bring in here. And once I've got that water line in, you know, I can water my trees with that same water. I can use that water for a garden, you know, and whatnot. And I want to try and set it up so that the IBCs can sort of act as settling tanks, and any mud that's in the water, which is just a little bit, you know, that's sort of muddy enough water, but if it's let to settle, it'll all sort of sit in the bottom of the IBC, and you make your outlet a bit higher than the bottom. Now with these IBCs, it sort of all tilts down a bit into this, so you can actually open up the proper tap and any of the crap that's in the bottom will come out. But you have your outlet for your water pipe up here somewhere, and then you don't suck any of the crap. And here I've got it very close to the bottom, but still, you know, the bottom technically gets to about there, but then the outlet's there. But if I was to have it up here, sure, you don't get all the water out, but there's no way that the mud won't just settle and stay on the bottom. And that would be a rather useful feature that I want to try and incorporate in the system. But I mean, the pipe alone is going to be $1,200 probably. You may say, why can't you use half-inch pipe? Why do you want to use 1.5 inch? Line friction, when you start going big distances, you get all these physics that all come up that you never thought would ever happen. Like if you've ever dealt with large pieces of plastic and all of a sudden you learn about thermal expansion. Like when you have solar panels that go a very long way from the solar panels to the charge controller. And if your wires are too thin enough, well, enough of you have seen somebody else's video to know what happens. There's little things you learn when you deal with things that are longer, larger, bigger, that you didn't ever see in a smaller, shorter, simpler, lower powered system. And basically the line friction will make it so that there's pretty much not a single bloody drop coming out the end if I was to use half-inch pipe. No matter how slowly it's pumped, no matter how it works out, you just get nothing. And 1.5 1.25 I am likely to get away with, according to my father's calculations. But if I want a good job, 1.5 inch. And so I'm going to try and put in 1.5 inch. We have a water pump that pumps 1 inch. It's actually one of my uncle's friend's water pumps that he sort of borrowed, and when he died, the friend said, just keep the damn thing. And I think it's a temperamental bitch of a thing from what I gather, but I think it's something to do with the plug on it or whatever. It's a Briggs & Stratton. Apparently it isn't completely unfixable problem, so I might end up using that water pump, but I probably won't pump a great deal, and it may just be easier to use a dirty water sump pump, which I can get quite easily, and sort of have it pump into an IBC, and then the IBC be hooked to the 1.5 inch line and just sort of pour down at its own rate, instead of trying to go like hell to force the pump to do it, because it's not a very steep slope, but when you've got such a long line, the line friction makes it really hard to push the water. It's just like, well, it's friction, you know, the same sort of thing you'll get with car tyres and stuff like that. That mightn't be an issue when you've got a push bike, but when you've got a blasted semi, it becomes an issue. And, you know, I found out about line friction with trying to water my trees with a half-inch pipe, that even with that IBC that's on that big steel box, which is actually an old diesel tank, you know, you come to realise that even though it's got a fall of 1.5 meters or so, it's just not coming out the end quite like you thought it was, because of the line of friction. Over 80 metres of half-inch pipe is a bit different to how you envision it from, you know, dealing with pipes that are only maybe 10 metres, not 80 metres. And, you know, so, yeah, but that's one of the long-term ones. I would like to be able to then extend that pipe over the edge of the hill as well, you know, and get it down to where the ground isn't sort of clay like it is here, but it sort of goes to this orange clay and sand mix. It's very much like, if you've ever been involved in growing potatoes, it's a lot like the soil that they usually grow potatoes in. It's sort of that, you know, 15% clay, 85% sand soil, and it's beautifully soft and, you know, pliable and not super dense like the clay is up here. And I want to be able to have probably a big potato patch down there one day. But I think just to get the water to the house, with one big a bunch of lines would be, you know, a good achievement for, you know, maybe, you know, 2015. If I could do that by the end of 2015, that'd be great, you know. And then I sort of wouldn't be as dependent on outside water supplies for basic things like watering trees and whatnot. Should I filter it and use it for here? I don't really think so, because you'd be chogging the filters up all the time. I should really just be using the rainwater for my personal use. But, you know, for gardens, if I was to hook into that dam and use that sort of water for gardens, holy smoke, I could have a flipping 2-acre veggie patch up here, and I'd have enough water to support it. That's not a joke. So, you know, it's one of those things where all of a sudden you get all these new options that you never had before, now that you have this massive water line bringing water down from a very large source of water, you know. And although it's one of those things that although I don't have set plans for what I could do, I know that I will be able to do a lot. It's a bit like if you've never owned a large truck and you've only ever had small little pipsqueak 4-cylinder hatchbacks, and all of a sudden you get a large truck and there's all these things that you never thought you could do that you now realise that you can do, but you never even considered it until you owned such a device or such a system, as I'm hoping to. But yeah, it's just a few things that might be happening in a nondescript fashion. This toilet system is going to cost a bloody fortune, thousands of dollars to have a dramatic upgrade of that, but I think it's something that needs to happen, and so I'm going to do that more as a priority. So yeah.